Hello, everybody.
You wanted to come up with a freaking handshake.
Enough.
Okay,
Well,
sorry.
We're going to start today.
Okay, sorry.
It is a Monday. It is the start to a great week. Welcome, everybody, to Check In. I am Sara Oleski. He is Jamie Thomas. We are so happy to have you here to help join the conversation as we get you set for tonight's game between the Winnipeg Jets and Minnesota Wild. As always, you can watch us on X, Facebook, and YouTube. But join the conversation. We want to hear where it is that you're watching from. We already saw someone post.
Yeah, this one.
Yes.
That's a flex, as my kids tell me.
Serious.
Yeah.
Snow outside, but we're very happy you're having your morning coffee in Hawaii.
Yeah. Worst place.
Don't forget the sunscreen.
I am not jealous of you at all.
It should be over the next half hour, we're going to get you ready for the game featuring not only your top two teams in the Central Division, 4 points separating them, but also the top two teams in the NHL right now, with the Jets sitting at 34 points. Minnesota Wild, hard to believe, right behind them at 30 with a 13-3-4 record.
Something like that we've been looking for. As soon as this road trip started, you didn't want to look too far down the road, but the Minnesota Wild sitting here and waiting. Of course, Jets beat them in overtime in the only meeting between these two teams earlier in the year. But the fact that they're the number 1 and 2 teams in the NHL, TSN Power Rankings have the Jets behind the Minnesota Wild, but we're not going to ask Darren Dreger about that.
So we are going to have Darren Dreger join us just momentarily, as well as Jesse Pierce, who was with us the last time that these two teams played as well. So love having Jesse join us as well. You might notice as well, if you come back on, that JT and I are sporting some Winnipeg Jets new gear.
We need like a ladder for this stuff.
I know, but this actually might be my new favorite sweatshirt. Mondetta. You remember back in the day with Mondetta, they had a great collaboration with the Winnipeg Jets 1.0. Well, they have come up with a new collaboration as well. It is available in Jets Gear stores. It's on the website as well. So these are fantastic sweatshirts if you are looking for one for yourself or maybe for the holidays coming up. But as mentioned, very quickly, because Darren is going to join us in about 3 or 4 minutes, a lot of people will be looking at the Jets lineup, wondering, what are we going to see tonight? Dylan Sandberg, the awful news about the broken foot. So unfortunate. He has come home. So who draws into the lineup? Well, with the pairings that we saw, Ville Heinola will be in the lineup. Looks like he's going to play in his first game since 2023. So
our question of the day, what do you want to see from Ville Heinola tonight? It's been like a long time coming, considering he had looked like he had made the team, not this preseason before, has the unfortunate incident where he breaks his ankle, then a little issue in the preseason again this year. So he's fought his way back through that. Played a couple of games in the Manitoba Moose over the weekend, looked pretty good, and has been called up and now makes his season debut with the Jets tonight.
Yeah, he played 10 games in that 2022-23 season. He's played 35 games in his career, but as mentioned, everybody has been waiting to see him. Fortunately, injuries have been such a storyline, but we'll talk about it in a few minutes after we speak to Darren Dreger. But the loss of Dylan Sandberg, averaging over 20 minutes a game, being so solid on that pairing with Neil Pionk, big loss for the Jets that we will break down in a little bit with you guys.
We are going to bring in a friend of the show. He's joining us from his new car. Just picked it up a lot. That's why he was coming on a little bit later. So it is Darren Dreger at TSN.
Drakes, thanks so much for doing this. We won't take much of your time. We know how busy you are, especially on Mondays with all of your various radio hits as well. But we're setting up tonight's game between the Jets and the Wild. Look at top two teams in the league right now in terms of point percentage. I don't think anybody 20-ish games into the season, 21 games into the season, necessarily would have predicted these two teams on top of the standings. Which one is more surprising to you?
Maybe Minnesota a little bit, Sarah, just, given everything that Minnesota has had to endure and go through. And, Billy Guerin is still trying to dig out from a salary cap crunch. And that's not new to the Winnipeg Jets. All teams have to abide by it. But as we know, Guerin and company went with a pretty aggressive approach, right, in buying out two key people in Suter and Parise. And they're still kind of stuck in the mud there, yet they continue to ice good teams. So Guerin deserves credit for that. The coaching deserves credit for that. And then ultimately it's on the players to execute. So I always look at Minnesota going through this transition as being a pesky team, a team that you always have to pay attention to because they do have that elite level talent. Kaprizov when healthy. But I'm a little surprised that they're doing what they're doing to this point of the season. And it looks like they're the real deal. They're always, again, in that conversation of being playoff worthy, But this year they appear to be more than that, but still relatively early.
Darren, you just recently had Scott Arniel on your podcast. What stood out to you in that conversation with the Jets head coach?
Just not how laid back he is, because, I mean, as you guys know, you're around Arnie all the time. Just how open he was, how comfortable he was. And I've had lots of conversations with him historically, and the majority of them have been hockey related. But he is no different than any other NHL head coach who is comfortable with the opportunity and with the challenges that lie in front of him. And, when we had him on, the Winnipeg Jets were still in the midst of that horrendous run. I mean, everything was going according to plan, and it was bolstered by the defensive structure, which we know was preached by the head coach and the coaching staff of the Jets. But he also cautioned and knew that there were tougher times ahead. I mean, it just speaks to the parity and how good all teams are for the most part across the National Hockey League. So it was a level of confidence, but he also was quick to point out why it was coming together and how proud he was of the group for buying in to the structure that seemed to be the backbone at the time. And then, of course, we had them when they were just prepping for that Tampa Bay game. And then they run into the Tampa Bay Lightning that night. And then, the next night was, the 2 nights later was against the Florida Panthers. And that game didn't go well. But the sign of a good team is always how you manage the ebbs and flows of a regular season. And look, again, Arnie was very honest. He knew that there were tougher times ahead, but the Winnipeg Jets have been able to get past that and then right the ship, and then you run into another. Look, it's going to be that type of year, but I think we can all see the commitment that exists, and I credit Scott Arniel, and then before that, Rick Bowness, of course, because there's been that transition from Bones to Arnie, but you've got to keep that leash tight, and Scott Arniel is more than capable of doing that.
Coming off of a weekend, Dregs, there's always seems to be no shortage of hockey news and talk speculation. We've seen coaching changes. I think New York Rangers are now maybe making news as well. When you look at the start of this week and what may lay ahead, what is it and what storyline intrigues you most?
Well, the one that's juicy is coming out of New York, right? And Sarah, I learned of this last night. We did the regional game between the Utah Hockey Club and the Toronto Maple Leafs, the only game on the menu last night. And this started to percolate a little bit last night, but full disclosure, I had heard of Jacob Trouba as potentially being in play. I did not hear of Chris Kreider, which Elliot Friedman has reported. I guess it makes sense given the boatload of pending unrestricted free agents that Chris Drury is going to have to wrestle with between now and the end of the season. Something like 12, 13 players. I mean, it's just an absurd amount. I guess what I'm curious about, though, and this is where it gets juicy, we know that Jacob Trouba does not want to leave New York in season. He made that abundantly clear at the draft when that story had surfaced, and, Drury was clearly shopping as captain at that point. And he said, no, hold on a second here. No, I'm not doing this. We know what the family reasons are behind it. And Trouba doesn't feel differently as we have this conversation right now. So what's different about it? What's different about it is both Trouba and Chris Kreider had to submit their 15-team no-trade list in July, which they have. So I guess Chris Drury feels comfortable enough, given how his team seems to be hot and or cold. I still look at them as a top contending team in the East. But maybe he feels like he's got to shake up this core. Maybe he feels like if he's lucky enough to find a trade partner with one of those teams, he can loosen up some money so that he can get to work on some of the contracts that we've talked about here. I don't think Trouba is going anywhere. And based on the reaction, the response I'm getting from the reporting today, this could be a tough one for Chris Drury, because Chris Kreider is a player who performs best when he's comfortable in his environment, and he won't be comfortable at this point today based on the news.
All right. Well, it's certainly, I think many people around the league and fans for sure will be watching the storyline, how it unfolds as well. Dregs, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for being able to fit us in today.
And enjoy the
Hey,
new
my
crop, buddy.
pleasure. No, I'm going grocery shopping. That's why I forgot. It's my day to
sent out with
grocery
the
shop.
list.
I definitely have a list.
Thanks, Dregs.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
Dregs.
guys.
See you
You
soon. One of my all-time favorites.
Oh
from
my gosh,
TSN.
the story you guys told. I had Dregs on last year on the podcast about the pirate shirt. My lord.
And it's
I
you
get
know
that story told a million times over. It never gets old. It's one of my favorites.
he is absolutely one of my favorites. Good prairie guy. And
Goes without saying.
Never forgets his
You know?
roots. Always appreciates. So thanks so much to Darren Drager. Jesse Pierce, just a reminder, will be joining us in about 10 minutes to get us set for the Wild. Tonight it'll be Connor Hellebuck versus Philip Gustafson in net. You look at what Gustafson's been able to do so far this season, 9-3-3. He has had a lot of success historically against the Winnipeg Jets, looking for a change in that respect. Tonight, the Jets going into Minnesota, they are 8-3 on the road. Minnesota has not had as much success with their great record, haven't had as much success within their own division. We've seen a lot of it, obviously, from Winnipeg.
Well, how about the Jets lost the other night in Nashville? The first time they lost A, to the Central Division, and then B, within the entire Western Conference, all their 3 previous losses coming from the Eastern Conference. So, I mean, Adam Lauer didn't want to admit to it as much, but you could tell in the third period the fact that they were down to 5 defensemen. It was their second game as many nights. They had just crossed the time zone. They had played in Pittsburgh the night before. To me, they looked like they were running out of gas. And I do love how the captain said afterwards it was nothing to do with that. It was more to do with execution. But sometimes lack of execution has to do with fatigue. So I love the fact that he's not leaning on all those variables that we've just talked about. But we can say it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, the second game of back-to-back, and when you lose Sandberg, so let's talk a little bit about Sandberg as well. As you see this question of the day continuing to scroll on the bottom, what do you want to see from Billy Heinola tonight in the lineup? He will be starting on a pairing with Colin Miller as well. Hayden Fleury moves up.
We'll show the lines here just for fun because it is a. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. Hold on a second. Keep
all right. So,
we should have saw when I did this by myself.
What we did have as discussion earlier was just the impact that it's going to have on the Jets to not have Dylan Sandberg in that lineup. They were looking for him to make that jump this year. They needed him to. No Brendan Dillon, obviously, and so he's playing 5 more minutes on the average. He's being in those key situations. You look at the job that he did with the shot block there and then trying to continue to block more shots. But I think that as much as we give him credit for his own game and what he's done, and rightfully so, I think he's also been a great fit beside Neil Pionk. Yeah,
and that's like between those two, like just talking to each other in the offseason, realizing how important the upcoming year was. The fact they spent so much time together speaks to the commitment that they had and the understanding of the amount of minutes that Dylan was going to have to play this year. And it's just such a fluke thing. You know, he's blocked probably that type of shot a million times in his NHL career. The fact that he's lifting up his leg, and it goes off the top part of his foot. Steven Stamkos is another thing too, that is known for a pretty good howitzer of a shot, and especially that one timer on the power play. It's just unfortunate. And and then unfortunately with injuries, opens the door for somebody else, which brings in Billy Heinola.
Yes. So when you look at these two teams, the Wild and the Jets, obviously we've already saw them once this season. The Wild were in here as a 2-1 overtime win for Winnipeg. But when you think of this rivalry, when you think of these games that exist between these two teams, what is it that immediately comes to mind for you?
Just the physicality. I don't think the game here in Winnipeg earlier in the year, and it was probably because it was so early in the year, that it wasn't as physical as they usually are. But whenever they are in St. Paul, the Xcel Energy Center, it feels like Minnesota is like on top of you right away. And I'm sure the Jets will be ready for that. And we said this the last show. It's like the Nashville game and the physicality was kind of like a good stepping stone for the Jets to be prepared for what's coming. And I know they're fully aware of what Minnesota's going to try and do in that opening period.
Someone I saw question, what about Logan Stanley? He was on the ice today in a non-contact jersey. Step forward. This was based off of a tweet from Mitchell Clinton. A step forward after he joined the morning skate in Pittsburgh after the formal part was done. So maybe another positive step as he comes back from, as he's working his way back from injury as well.
Would love to have his size and physicality in this game tonight, but again, door opens for Ville Heinola to come in without Colin Miller, and of course, Hayden Fleury will step into that second defense pairing with Neil Pionk. So two new defense pairings for the Winnipeg Jets tonight ahead of this huge central clash. Minnesota 4 points back of the Jets for first place in the division.
Minnesota points in 7 of their last 8 games. Kirill Kaprizov, according to Line Rushes, was taking part. And he didn't play last game in Calgary. He was injured in that knee-on-knee collision in Edmonton, but signs are pointing, although I believe he is said to be a game-time decision. We will ask Jesse about that, but it does look like he could be back into the lineup tonight, which would be a huge boost for Minnesota. Obviously, he's in the early talks, very early in this season, but one of those names that you hear when people talk about potential Hart Trophy winners, certainly he's one of the ones at the forefront.
One of the things I remember seeing on the weekend, because Minnesota was in Calgary, the last game of the road trip, Kaprizov got hurt in Edmonton, finished out the game after a knee-on-knee collision with Drake Caggiula of the Oilers. There's that concern about the injuries that Kaprizov keeps running into, and they brought up the collision with Logan Stanley, and it was of course Elliot Friedman pointing out the fact that you could tell in the collision with Logan Stanley landing on top of Kaprizov, it was by accident. It was and Kaprizov just went down in an awkward position. And when someone 6'7" lands on top of you, that's not going to be fun at the best of times. So there's just all this conversation, the frustration from the Minnesota Wild about how these injuries keep happening, and you can understand because the importance Kaprizov has to their lineup.
All right. Do we have the lines for Minnesota?
We sure do.
We do. So if you look, there's some differences that we've seen from when they were here in Winnipeg in terms of what their lineup is like. In that game early on, it was the 3rd game of the season for Minnesota. There was no Joel Eriksson-Ek. There was no Jared Spurgeon. So we're seeing some changes. Also, their D pairings because of that were changed as well. Zach Bogosian in that first game, believe was up on the top pairing. So we haven't had a look at this Minnesota Wild team yet. And one of the things that they spoke about after their practice the other day was that it's really a chance to showcase yourself against the best. And you and I have had the discussions before about how with the Winnipeg Jets being where they are in the standings, you are getting everybody's best game because everybody wants to take the top team down, everybody. So you do have that target on your back with them, and it should be a great one here tonight.
Yeah, well, Drake's pointed out how the Jets have handled that type of pressure, and they've gone into a little bit of speed bump. The quality of the opposition has elevated a bit, being on the road as much as they have, the way they've been bouncing through time zones. So a lot of things weighing on them, but I think we go back to that game against Florida at home, how they bounced back after losing the Stanley Cup champions the previous Saturday. And then, of course, the excellent game that they had against the Pittsburgh Penguins to start off this road trip.
Yeah, just before we bring in Jesse, I just want to – so Travis Boyd is not supposed to be in the lineup today. He made his NHL debut.
Oh, yes, that's a good one.
His Wild debut the other day. So this is one of my favorite tweets, though, that I have seen, or videos, really. So the tweet, I mean, a number of people had tweeted about it, but this was Spit and Chicklets had put this out. How would you like it if you were racing and they were so tight on time in order to try to get to the Saddle Dome that they got out of the vehicle and walked? This to me, this might be my favorite.
Yeah, that's junior hockey in a nutshell right there. This is not the NHL, but that's how bad traffic can be. And having grown up in Calgary and been to the Saddle Dome many times, the traffic is usually terrible around that time. So good on them to get out and hoof it to work. That day.
And you can just imagine the anxiety that would be going through as you're watching it. Anyone that is even
it's like the NHL
yourself trying to get maybe to work on time, or if you have a child with you and you're trying to get to a sporting event, or you want to get them there on time, and the anxiousness that goes along with it. So I love that scene. That was one of my favorite ones.
I love having Jesse Pierce on the show, and she may not know this, but she is the first opposing media member to appear on the check-in twice. So congratulations in that department. That was what you really want to aspire to this season, early on, but congratulations on peaking early.
Exactly, but I take all the awards that I can get. I place them up there. It's fantastic. We love it. We'll take any victory.
And your Twitter description a little bit later today as well. So what we all want to know, Kirill Kaprizov got hurt over the weekend in Edmonton, didn't play in Calgary. Is he in tonight against the Winnipeg Jets?
Unofficially, yes. John Hines called him a game time decision, but the way that he took rushes with that top line, Joel Eriksson and Matt Boldy, and he's Kirill Kaprizov. He's not going to miss many hockey games in general, but especially one against the number one Winnipeg Jets this evening. So officially, John Hines calls him game time. I'm saying yes, you will see Kirill Kaprizov back on the ice tonight for the Minnesota Wild.
Well, I mean, great from a quality.
Yes.
See, I don't know.
Opponent.
I don't know if you're looking at the numbers that he can put up, if he could just
And has put up against the Jets.
If he could just take it easy for one more game. We speak so much about the start, obviously, that the Winnipeg Jets have had here, but the Minnesota Wild right behind them as well. And I don't know if always in all the markets they get the same amount of attention in terms of the success that they have had. Why have they been able to get off to the start that they have so far? Because I don't think a lot of people would be expecting them, given everything. We just had Darren Drager on, given everything that Bill Guerin's had to work with. And the challenges, I don't think we would have expected them to be sitting where they are in the standings.
Yeah, I mean, you look at last year what Minnesota, how they started, and it was terrible. For lack of a better word, it was so bad that Dean Evson gets fired come November, right? And they had to have this changing of the guard. So I think there was such an emphasis on not repeating that. They saw how quickly they fell out of the playoff favor, how hard it was to get back into any sort of contention. And I think a lot of them were just very disappointed in themselves as a whole, how last season went. So I think from day one of training camp, that was on everybody's mind. Everybody knew that they were a better team than what they showed last year. And you're looking at a lot of the same guys, if not all of the same guys from last year returning. So you're getting bounce back years from guys like Ryan Hartman. Marco Rossi's continuing to trend upward. Philip Gustafson, huge bounce back after he really struggled last season. And then you're getting some secondary scoring from Matt Boldy again early on, Joel Eriksson. So I think collectively it just started as a team knowing that they were better than what they showed last year and knowing how important the start was. Because as we all know, you can't win the Stanley Cup in October, but you sure as heck can lose it. And that was the position Minnesota put themselves in last year, determined to not repeat this season.
Funny that you should mention Philip Gustafson. Last time we had you on the show, there was the 3 goalie situation, and it looked like Philip Gustafson was the odd man out amongst those 3 goaltenders. Now he has turned things around. Incredible start to the year. And you mentioned one of the big reasons why the Wild are up to the best 20-game start in their franchise history. What has he done this year to turn things around?
It's like his revenge tour. I know there's a big Taylor Swift heiress going on, right? It's his reputation, if you will. Yeah, they'll always get somebody with it. No, I think Philip Gustafson, it was his spot to lose. He came into camp with a new focus. He went overseas back home to Sweden in the offseason, and I think he recognized in himself he needs to be better. He's been given this opportunity with Minnesota since he came into the organization from Ottawa to really take hold of those reins as the starting goaltender, and he's been given that, but he didn't own up to it last year. I think the injury kind of derailed him a little bit. He lost a lot of confidence. He lost a lot of that focus. This year, he's tracking the puck incredibly well. I would say I haven't seen him do this even in the past 2 seasons. It's been really, really fun to watch, and it's just he's on his A game, and when he's on his A game, he's hard to take out. Marc-Andre Fleury is the most beloved teammate in that locker room, and of course, we want to see him in between the pipes, but you can't take a guy like Gus out. The way he's seeing the puck, the way he's making the saves in all these different situations, and the way he's just completely dialed in, it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Listen, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Wild and Jets are never boring, especially down in St. Paul. I think the Jets are fully prepared what that first period is going to look like. So enjoy the game tonight, and thank you so much for coming on again.
And just before you go, though, Jesse, I want to say that the comments, people, Winnipeg sports fans love you.
Yes.
They were talking about, know that you're on Winnipeg Sports Talk as well. They were just saying about what a busy day you have in the Winnipeg market for it, but how they love your takes. And so we always wanted to pass that along, but always appreciate when you make a little time for us.
Appreciate it, you guys. Looking forward to a good one tonight.
Thanks so much, Jesse.
See you, Jesse.
Bye.
Jesse Pierce. And listen, we called her in the last second.
Yes. She's great.
Yeah. Because of that appearance alone. We're like, we have a big show today. We have Darren Drager. We got to keep it going. And Jesse was our.
Never disappoints. Always great. Make sure that you follow her if you don't already on various social media platforms. Read her work at NHL.com. One of my favorites. Just very quick. So I just want to circle back really quickly to that Boyd clip for it.
Want me to bring it up again?
No, that's fine. But have you ever been in a situation where you think, need to park and just
Oh, I got a great one.
try to run. Because also,
Yeah.
I mean, he's making his wild debut set for it. But it's not as if, I mean, it's not like he's a 19-year-old who can do this too. You're a vet grabbing your stuff and going.
So when I was still at Sportsnet, it was a weekend, and there's always parades in Toronto on the weekend. You remember
Yes.
this? So I was coming in from Burlington, and I had a show at 2:00. It was before the next NFL game, and I had to literally park my car in an apartment building and run through the Pride Parade to Sportsnet, and I was sweating, and I got on there 5 minutes beforehand.
So I had a similar stressful one. Didn't maybe plan out. Best had to pick up my daughter from school.
Yep.
I dropped her
Here?
off here in Winnipeg. Had to drop her off, make my way back down. If you are watching us and you are from Winnipeg, Confusion Corner, it was backed up. There was no way to get through. I was trying to cut through side streets, which was not working either to be able to get me through. I was supposed to be, so I was with TSN at the time. I was supposed to have a Sports Center hit and a That's Hockey hit.
Yeah.
The stress. I called my husband in an absolute panic saying, I might need to just abandon the vehicle and run.
Is that okay?
That's right.
Yeah.
If I put on the hazards and just the four ways and leave it, can I just run?
If I leave it running, can you come get it afterwards? Yes. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So the stress of it all, certainly. But I loved that scene. Okay, as we get close to wrapping up here in the news of the day, so we know that Ville Heinola is expected to make his NHL or his season debut, should I say, with the Jets this year. So great opportunity for him. Obviously, still no Logan Stanley. Dylan Sandberg has been sent home. The Jets looking to bounce back. Kirill Kaprizov is going to be a game time decision, but we are expecting to see him in the lineup after missing one game for the Minnesota Wild. It's a Connor Hellebuyck versus Philip Gustafsson matchup.
Yeah, there's just all the right recipe for tonight, and especially with the snow coming down, it's kind of like the perfect night to sit at home and either A, listen to the game, or B, watch the game. I can't wait. It's gonna, especially with the Jets losing Saturday in Nashville. They're gonna have a bee in their bonnet and be ready to go.
I love when teams play with a bee in the bonnet.
Yeah.
Huh?
But that's coming tonight. It's coming. It's gonna be a great hockey game.
Again, if for some reason, if you missed us off the top, JT and I sporting the new some of the new gear that is available from Mondetta.
Sure. The commercial.
Go for it.
Well, I guess it's called a commercial, but
we'll play it. Let's see what
you might recognize this. Those of you. Boom.
We had so much fun when we got to wear the gear for 90s Day.
Yes.
Thought we'd throw some stuff on today. Again, available in Jets Gear store, available on the website as well.
Okay, so Phyllis says give you some props, so I give you a hard time all the time. So you do deserve this.
I would have done the same thing if I were in her shoes. Thank you, Phyllis.
Yeah.
It was a spectacular.
I was not very supportive of your choice, but that's okay. But now that I see the joy that came from it, going with Avery and everything.
Yeah, it's a lie, but that's okay.
Mother-daughter time. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of that ahead of the holidays.
It was great.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone, thanks so much for checking in with us today. Always keep the conversation going. Oh no.
Look at this.
Now
like what? Like, see, everybody's like
Please
nice to
look
you
right
and they
down,
rip
you
on
guys,
me.
even on
I've
you.
got WJ2000 making fun of me that I don't know how to use a computer. They're like,
well, you know,
it's we know where your loyalties lie, everybody. We know where you lie. And this is what's happened. So
we hope that you join us on every game day, 12:30, as we get you ready to set up the Winnipeg Jets game of that day. If not, you can always catch us the replay on X, Facebook, or YouTube. Smash that like button. We saw a number of you have done that already, so we always appreciate it. But lots to talk about as this road trip will continue to go on. A reminder that the Winnipeg Jets in a stretch right now where they are playing 15 games in 15 different cities.
Impressive.
Or in 15 cities, because they play in Winnipeg a couple times.
Yeah.
But that's pretty crazy. Maybe we'll talk about that when we get them set for LA.
Yeah, when they come back for that one. Oh, actually, LA is a good idea. I like where your head's at.
All right. We'll see.
Okay.
We got stuff to talk about. Anyways, we hope you have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks so much for checking in with us. I'm Sarah Leske. He's Jamie Thomas.
Good day, everybody.